The Rise of Skywalker was recently released on digital and is supposed to come out on physical media next week. The masses will have the opportunity to relive every Swiss cheese plot hole moment in the finale of the most mismanaged sequel story in motion picture history. I think it's safe to say that there are more than a few things in this film that fans disagree on. Now, fuck that. It's like Bob Iger saw the fan response to The Last Jedi and wondered aloud, what can we do to top that? And Emperor KK said, challenge accepted. Hold my soy-infused mocha macchiato, and sent the dumpster fire ablaze that eventually became Star Wars Episode 9. There were so many things in that movie that did not make sense and left more plot holes and questions than it answered. And since it didn't really answer any questions, that leaves plot holes aplenty. How is Palpatine back? Where's he been? Who was Snoke, really? Now, we sort of got an answer to this one, but I'm going to call BS on it. And a bazillion more questions that have been the subject of fan debate for months that were not answered on screen. Well, we finally get all the answers we've been clamoring for with the Rise of Skywalker Expanded Edition novelization by Rae Carson. Oh, happy day. But wait a minute. It seems like we've been waiting longer than normal for a film companion novel. What the hell's up with that? Well, back in January, Jedi News announced the Rise of Skywalker novelization was getting pushed back by 2 weeks, from March 3rd to March 17th. The article doesn't say why this was, but they published the article on January 13th, nearly a month after the film's domestic release, which is plenty of time for Disney to get the public reaction, read the room, and realize, hey, people are complaining about plot holes. We need to get the writer on the phone and tell her we need another rewrite. The more polarizing moments of the film was the final scene where Rey flies the Falcon to the Lars homestead on good old Tatooine, where it all began. How she got the address for an abandoned underground house in the middle of the fucking desert, I'll never know. Maybe Miss Carson is kind enough to fill that plot hole too, but I digress. Anyway, she shows up at Luke's childhood home, looks around, loots and pillages whatever might be useful, I'm making an assumption there, and goes out to the front yard where she carefully wraps Luke and Leia's lightsabers and force buries them in the ground. Then ignites her own yellow lightsaber for no good reason other than dramatic effect. When she looks up and is startled by what's probably the nosy, busybody neighbor that lives down the street, and by down the street I mean 5, maybe 10 miles in any direction from the Lars place because it's in the middle of fucking nowhere. Somehow the amazing Wonder Rey didn't see this old hag coming when she had an unobstructed view for miles in every direction. Anyway, the old bat asks,
who are you?
I'm Rey.
Rey who?
Rey thinks for a moment and feels compelled to look off to her right where she sees the Force ghosts of Luke and Leia together, smiling at her. Somehow Rey takes that as a cue to look back at the old lady that could have easily collapsed from heat exhaustion as long as she had to wait for an answer, and declares, in what I take to be smug satisfaction,
Rey Skywalker.
Then inexplicably walks just far enough to get the nosy neighbor out of the camera shot so she can have the full frame all to herself and claim the parting shot of staring into the Tatooine twin sunset and roll end credits. That moment where Rey takes the Skywalker name, according to Rae Carson, is the Skywalker's, quote, ultimate victory over Emperor Palpatine. In an interview with StarWars.com, she said this, I recognize that Rey's decision proved controversial, and I look forward to discussing this with fans for years to come. But my current take is this. The entire Skywalker saga is about Palpatine turning or trying to turn Skywalkers to the dark side. We'll address that in a minute. He especially hopes that Rey will prove a worthy vessel for his own power and ambition and become the Skywalker's final downfall. But in spite of all his efforts over the course of 3 generations, he fails. Rey rejects everything about him and takes on the Skywalker mantle and legacy. In the end, it's a Palpatine who turns to the light, thus handing the Skywalkers their ultimate victory. First, let's get one thing out of the way. Star Wars has never been about Palpatine's obsession with turning Skywalkers to the dark side. It's not a Palpatine-Skywalker family feud like the upper-class kerfuffle between the Montagues and the Capulets, or the down-home bloodbath between the Hatfields and the McCoys over a hog stealing. The prequel and original trilogies are, collectively, the tragedy of Darth Vader, the story of a man prophesized from birth to destroy true evil in the galaxy and bring balance to the light and the dark that rises to fulfill that prophecy, but because, like Meatloaf, he would do anything for love, he is consumed by that evil and falls to the dark, the prequel trilogy, and the hero's journey of his son to redeem him so, in the end, he can fulfill that prophecy and destroy the evil that destroyed him, the original trilogy. Anakin Skywalker forsaking his dark side master after so many years to save his son from suffering the same fate he did. That was the ultimate victory over Emperor Palpatine. Not what the amazing Wonder Rey did in that scene. Not what basically amounts to identity theft. One of Rey's most prominent character traits is not knowing who she is and what her role is in the universe. No one knows her, as she says on more than one occasion herself. And she doesn't really know herself except that she was abandoned on a big dirt clod of a planet, and she's the bestest at everything she tries. She refuses to let any of the other characters tell her what to do, not Snoke, not Kylo Ren, and most of all, not Jake fucking Skywalker. Hell, not satisfied with how he reacted to her showing up on Ahch-To, she bitched at him, stole his sacred stuff, and tried to kill him. Yeah, that's a role model for you. With her identity crisis, one would think she would have tried to find her own identity and place in the universe instead of stealing from and ride the coattails of a legend in the galaxy. It would have made more sense for Rey to turn back to the roaming Crypt Keeper and declare her name to be Rey Smith or Rey Jones or something other than Skywalker. The ultimate victory of Palpatine happened when the original trilogy concluded. That's it. Done. This sequel trilogy is not the completion of the Skywalker saga. It's Emperor KK's disjointed cash grab special effects reel masquerading as a Star Wars trilogy badly. Nothing more, nothing less.